full personal statement. We're going to ask that you put all of your questions into the chat. And while each of us are presenting on the slides, the other one will be checking the chat to make sure that your questions are being answered. But rest assured, if we don't answer them during the presentation, we do have question and answer at the end as well. This workshop is designed to apply to institutions that are coalition application institutions, institutional applications, as well as common applications. So, without further ado, where do we start? We first want to bring to your attention how universities use the college essay. I wish this was a more interactive session because I'd love to ask all of you, and you can put your responses in the chat, how you believe universities use the essay. Well, it's one of these three or all of these three options. The essay helps us do at least one, if not some or several of these. We're truly looking for an essay to give us the picture of who you are. The essay brings humanity to your application. It really makes you come alive on paper. A colleague of mine, and I'm going to quote him from Bucknell University, best described the college essay. He said, "The essay is where I like to feel the heartbeat of the student and what makes you tick." So when you're writing your essay, you want us walking away from your essay thinking, I can't wait to meet you and see you on our campus and provide you with the resources to make you succeed in life.
So I know that a lot of you are sitting in front of your essay questions, not really sure how to get started. Well, we'd like to point out that there are 4 types of college essays that you can see if you identify with any one of them that might actually help you get your essay started. So it really depends on your life journey. So there are students that have maybe faced some challenges in their life and they know what they want to study. Then we have the students that maybe haven't faced anything significant challenges, everything's been pretty smooth, but they still know what they want to study. And then we have almost the opposite. We have the students who have faced that significant challenge, but are not really sure what to study and want to talk about how they want to explore different courses and majors that are offered by the colleges. And then we go back to the student who has not faced those big challenges in life and also is really not sure what they want to study. Maybe it's because they haven't really faced any big changes or challenges or obstacle that they're a little bit confused. And that's one of the great things about coming to college in the US is that you can come in as an undeclared major. You can create your major. You can start one major and then change it after a year. You can take elective classes. You can get minor classes. So that's a really great thing about the US is that you can come in and you might not know what you want to study yet. And that's something that your essay can definitely be about.
We do have a question that I really want to ask Education USA, and that is this going to be recorded and uploaded to YouTube or any type of Education USA channel? We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. So the webinar is recorded and we're going to share it with everyone who has registered, but not through the YouTube. We will share you the Drive link.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Alexandra.
No problem.
Go ahead.
All right, so we actually wanted to show you some essay topics. So a lot of students are going to use the common application and some will use the coalition one. So here are some typical college essays for topics for the common application. So A lot of it has to do with a student's background, identity, or interest, which is really great for international students because you can really stand out in this. Any sort of lessons that you, again, the students who have gone through significant challenges or obstacles, those are things that are really good topics to pick. Even reflect on a time where something had, you've gone through something that made you change your opinion or your belief in something, or even describe a problem that you have solved, which is a really great one for, honestly, people who do job interviews. They do get that question a lot. Have you gone through a situation where you faced a problem and you figured out how to solve it, and how did you do that? It really shows the critical thinking that the student has. You can also talk about any sort of accomplishments. This is really great for athletes or anybody who's has participated in any sort of fairs or groups and organizations. We also have the one where, this is also in the coalition one, where you can actually just choose a topic of your choice to just share an essay of whatever you kind of feel, something that you have maybe already written, or anything that you want to design yourself. All right. So then the coalition application, very similar kind of prompts, just tell a story about your life, anything that you have experienced and that helped build your character, anything that shaped you. Describe when you were able to make a meaningful contribution to others, if you were involved in a nonprofit, or if you were able to maybe help out friends or family members or somebody in your community. And then we go back to if you've ever had a belief that, you've gone through a situation where you've changed your belief and you've accepted it, and the challenge that you went through to get there. And then there's also a pretty relevant question to now: what is the hardest part of being a student right now? What do you think is the best part, or a really good one is if you have any advice for the younger generation. And then finally, again, submit an essay topic of your choice if you don't think that any of these ones kind of fit what you want to talk about or what you want to share with the university. So again, when you're sitting in front of these topics and you're not really sure how to get started, when you're not even sure how to write your first sentence, there's a really simple exercise. It's called the feelings and needs. So if you just think of a whole list of feelings like sad, scared, angry, tired, and then needs, a whole list with what needs that you have. You can start putting some sentences together using this particular exercise. If you guys want to just take a picture of this, you can just start writing sentences. When I saw, when I heard, when I experienced, and you can just start writing about an event, something positive or negative that you went through. And then you do the feelings and needs exercises. So you felt, certain emotions. I felt overwhelmed. I felt scared at first. I was excited about the challenge. And then you can go into the needs, because I needed to grow. I needed to make myself feel more confident. So those are some really easy ways to kind of just get some sentences on a piece of paper, and maybe the rest can kind of develop from there. So we're going to start talking about some key factors in preparing your essay. So today's goal, we're going to talk about, Carol, a little bit more into depth about knowing your audience, being mindful of your reader. Obviously it'll be your admissions counselor at the different schools that have different missions and values. Definitely create an outline. So again, it's really tough to kind of start an essay, but if you can just kind of create an outline about what you're going to start with the top, how you're going to go into, your other paragraphs and how you kind of want to conclude it, what specific topics. Definitely choose one of the essays or topics that you're passionate about. Write something that you know. It's always easier to write about something that you already know. Make sure to keep the reader engaged. Definitely proofread your spelling and your grammar. And sometimes you've read this essay so many times, just have somebody else read it for you, because there will be a tiny mistake that you won't see through the several days that you write it. Somebody else will, and just try to make it memorable. All right, and then Karen, it's all yours if you want to go into depth with all of those.
Thanks. So I'm going to try to the best of my abilities, even though this is a webinar, to make it as interactive as possible. So between me and Alexandra, we'll be checking out the chat, and I will be reading you sample parts of essays so you get a sense of what we're talking about. But what's really important right here is, who is your audience? In this picture, what do you see? What we're trying to depict here is a teacher, parents, and students, right? And what do all of these people have in common? They know you. We don't know you. And that's really important to distinguish when you're preparing your essay. Admissions professionals will read your essay. Teachers may read your essay depending on the university. Coaches, if you're applying to universities and want to play an athletic sport. I know at our university, when we give full scholarships, our vice president wants to take a look at your essay. And what we all are different from what all you know is that you don't know us, and we only know you by what we see on paper. What does that actually mean? It means you need to keep in mind that admission counselors, like Alexandra referenced, come from diverse backgrounds, diverse values. And while we're supposed to keep an objective point of view when we read your essay, you don't know us, so you can't make an assumption that your way is the only way in moving forward. You got to keep that in mind, because your essay has a purpose here. And we're really going to go into more detail as we talk about the do's of essay writing. Alexandra noted it. It's really important to write about what you're passionate about. Why do we say that? Because when you write about something you're passionate about, it's going to be your best work. And we're really trying to get to know you above things that you can't change in your application. By now, you can't change your grades, you can't change your GPA, you can't change your standardized tests. So it's best to write what you're passionate about. If I can give you one piece of advice, and I'm going to say this, if this is the only thing you remember out of today's session, you've remembered a lot. Because our whole purpose is to get to know you better, your essay should be 25% story, 75% about you. Too often I see students submit a paper from a class as their college essay, or potentially write about a role model and it's all about someone else as opposed to themselves. We're trying to see if you're a good fit for our institutions. So sometimes your best piece of work is the work that you're most passionate about. I'm going to give you a brief example of a passionate essay. And I'll explain to you right after I read this section of this essay why it's so valuable. At Bentley, we have a computer information systems major, so you understand the context of this essay. During my freshman year, I was looking for a new desktop computer to replace my outdated late model machine. Technology had changed rapidly, and so had my computing needs. As I investigated the computers offered by the major companies like Dell, HP, and Sony, just to reference a few, I realized that the price was very high for equipment that would barely meet my current needs. So I decided I was going to build my own computer. That is the story. The rest of this gentleman's essay is all about his doing research, assessing components and their functionality, looking at performance and pricing, and most importantly, the quality of the parts that he needed. And he proceeded to give us a depiction over the next few years of buying all these parts, showing his endurance, his drive, and his determination, putting them together, whether it was installing heat sinks or multiple hard drives, whether he was putting in advanced video graphics or multiple cooling systems. He has told us so much about himself and his abilities and his brilliance. And then he puts it all together, hardwires it, and then tells me something tells me something else about himself, which was he had programming skills. And he wanted to put in systems that make it harder for his computer to be hacked into. And then he put on temperature warming processors to make this machine work the best it possibly can. What sold me was he shared with us that the first time this machine started, it ran brand new. And while it took him almost 3 years to build it, it was the most reliable computer and the fastest computer than what was existing on the market at that time. And it cost him half. Now, when we read this student's profile from an academic standpoint, he was probably going to be waitlisted at best. But when I shared this essay with our faculty were like, oh my goodness, I would have never thought of this. We have to admit this student. Please give me his contact information. I want to talk to him further. And so I wanted to give you that picture about the power of an essay. And when you write about something you're passionate about, it's going to shine through. So when selecting your essay topic, be smart about your choices. Be careful about controversial essay topics. Stay away from persuasive essays, and be careful about how much you indulge about personal information. Like Alexandra mentioned in the very beginning, some people will have life events that they want to share that could impact their overall profile or bring them into the direction of their career aspirations. Here's a little glimpse of someone who gave us an essay, which is very personal, but when I summarize the rest of it, you'll get a sense of the purpose for providing us this personal information. So if you are going to choose a topic that's personal, it should be tasteful and have a purpose. Death was imminent as I crawled into the hospital bed with her and remembered a time when I was younger, when my mother had been admitted to the hospital for several months of recuperation from the near-death experience of her bone marrow transplant. Every day I would visit her and she would save me the apple juice box from her inedible hospital meal, and happily I would think that was the best part of my day. Now there was no apple juice box, no child's innocent, just my mother and I together for what I didn't know would be the last time. Very personal topic. She's talking about the death of her mother, but she chose her essay and she chose this experience to then explain to us, the reader, that while we may have seen her grades drop for a certain period of time of her academic life, she wanted to assure us that she still had a lot of learning, that her mother taught her about life because she wasn't going to be there for her high school graduation, for her university studies graduation, when she got married, maybe when she started her own family. So she wanted to say, well, you may not see the academic excellence during these 6 months. I have learned, and I learned about life. And from this experience, she aspired to open up an NGO to service youth whose parents either are terminally ill or have passed, and provide them with the resources they need to move forward. The purpose there showed me that we had degree options at our institutions to allow her to achieve her goal. Keeping the reader engaged. This is my favorite piece. Alexandra, I'm sure, can attest to this. Most universities read on average 40 to 60 essays per day. And I've worked for universities that we've been expected to read between 80 and 100 essays per day. I know all of you are sitting there and your fingers are crossed and saying, oh, I hope it's my essay they read first, because if it's 10 hours later, I don't want them to be so tired that they are not paying attention to what they're reading. Some institutions only can budget 10 or 15 minutes to read and evaluate your entire application. So your essay should answer the question, so it would be complete messaging, while being concise and keeping us engaged. So I'm going to read you a couple of opening sentences of some essays that I find were very engaging as well as creative. I hear noises all around me, honking horns, wailing sirens, and roaring engines, but they don't bother me. I actually enjoy them. Sensing them so near reminds me that I'm doing something good, something different, something courageous. Aren't you curious what this person's writing about? They engaged me. They've now drawn me in. That has allowed me to want to read more. Here's another one. And it also has a creative flair. And mind you, what I just read you was the story. The rest is all about the person. In calculating the distance of a trip to the other side of the world, one might typically consider using the standard unit of measurement of kilometers or miles. I'm measuring my trip to the Philippines in a different unit of measurement: apple pies. Once again, it's very creative and it's engaging. It's making you want to read more. Here's one. I'm not sure when it happened, but it did. I fell helplessly obsessed with vampires. Ever since I can remember, the ability to project and look back into my past and project the future from experience has always fascinated me. Very creative of using the analogy of vampires for a passion in history. We also really love to learn when we read essays. So giving us something that's informative and creative and entertaining shows us that you're having fun, but we also have fun. And this will be the last one that I read an excerpt from. Now, Walmart is a large, I want to say, combination of a supermarket, department store, clothing store facility in the United States. And I needed to explain that to you so you understand this little excerpt. My dream come true would be to work for Walmart. That's what I tell people when they ask me what I want to do when I grow up. When I tell them my dream, they don't even try and suppress their surprise. I get a real kick at staring at their dropped jaws and their wide eyes. Perhaps they imagine me as a Walmart greeter, standing in front of the store with my bubbly personality, directing people to where the sales are. Tomato sauces to your left, pineapple juices to your right. But my dream job is much higher up the corporate ladder. I want to be the next Margaret McKenna, chair of the Walmart Foundation. Did you know that Walmart donates over $500 million to charities all over the world? And remember I said earlier, it's really important to understand your audience because she doesn't know me, right? Well, Margaret McKenna used to be my old boss. So she's now writing about someone that I know. So keep that in mind when you don't know who your audience is. They might know information that you're providing. Alexandra mentioned it earlier, and I'm just going to touch upon it. You need to proofread your essay. And she was absolutely right when she said, sometimes you miss things, right? Because you're so used to reading it and rewriting it that you could miss something. So I'm going to give you another piece of advice. Read your essay backwards. Because when you read something backwards, you're more apt to catch spelling and grammar mistakes. And if you're going to put a university's name in your essay, make sure it's not an essay for a coalition or a common application school, because that one essay fits all the universities you're applying to. Anything you want to add to that, Alexandra?
Oh, that's a really good point. I've definitely gotten essays where they say, I really look forward to going to this university, and it's not mine. It's somebody else's university. And so that's always, it really kind of, it's not the
It kind of
greatest.
makes our admissions decision really easier, right?
Yeah.
When universities get 10,000, 40,000, I've worked for one that gets 63,000 applications a year. You've just made our decision much easier.
A little bit.
This one's yours.
All right, so now we're going to the other side, what to avoid, what not to do. So cliches and cliche essay topics. Karen will go, I think you have some examples of that. Inappropriate topics, persuasive essays, very much like the journalists who are trying to convince us of something. Plagiarism, that's a big, big no-no. I mean, we cannot stress that enough. I had one of the questions is if you can cite a famous or popular person. Absolutely, you can quote anybody you want. You can quote other texts. You just have to cite it properly. And that's how we avoid plagiarism, because if we notice plagiarism, that's a big no-no. Controversial topics. And then another one that we also would really recommend people avoiding is writing out your resume. Some students have had some really nice experience and have a really nice CV and resume, and they think that writing it out into a paragraph is going to make it look good, and we're going to just notice that you're just putting sentences into your resume. We don't need that. We want to hear a story that is different than your resume. And then another thing, Karen mentioned that we have so many essays that we read in one day. So we really, really need you guys to stick to the word count guidelines. If it says 300 words, do not go over it. Also, some of the applications, it will literally cut off your essay if you don't stick to the word count. Definitely count your words as much as, go ahead, write your essay, do your word count, and make sure that the content is good and the flow is nice. And then if you're still above the word count, go in and try to delete some words, maybe delete full sentences, shorten a sentence. But yeah, definitely stick to the word count. And I'll let Karen go into a little bit more details and examples.
Thank you. So what is an expected topic? Can any of you even put in the chat feature what you think an expected topic might be? Let me give you an example. If it's clear throughout your application from your awards and maybe from your extracurricular activities and from your recommendation letters that you are passionate about football, don't write about football for your college essay. Your application shouldn't be repeating things. Every section should tell us something new and something more about you.
So we
Someone
have
said they
to-
think it was basketball or an allergy. Maybe about mental challenges one have faced. I don't think that those are actually, maybe the basketball, if it's highlighted somewhere else. And yes, the winning Olympics, if it's highlighted somewhere else, don't recreate it here. So think about that piece a little bit in more detail. Remember, know your audience as well. Sometimes, and I referenced it earlier about writing about a role model, you can write about a role model. I think a lot of people do. I think, Alexandra, you could probably attest to that as well, us being two different institutions. But don't write all about the role model. Write just a few sentences about who that role model is and make the rest of the essay all about you. Maybe how they've impacted you to make you who you are today. What's a cliche? Does anyone want to share with me what a cliche is? As I jump into the chat. Usual things, yeah, common expressions, right? Commonly used expressions. So what we often see if someone chooses to write about sports, for example, it's going to be the time I won XYZ. Or if someone is talking about a trip, a cliche is how something changed my life forever. In fact, that's the exact sample of a resume, of a essay I'm going to read you right now, because I have had this essay as part of my workshop now. And I challenge myself because it's 13 years old and I've never read it. I stopped reading this student's essay after the first sentence because of what the first sentence is, and that's a cliche. This year, I made a decision that would change my life forever. Now, I don't know about you, Alexandra. I'm much older than the person that wrote this essay. I can't tell you what forever is. How else could this person have written their opening sentence to engage us to want to read more rather than close a door because you used a cliche and you shouldn't be using a cliche? Absolutely, Surya. Cliches are phrases or words that are overused. So about the winning goal, I'm tired of hearing about that winning goal or how things change your life forever. This person could easily have said, I made a decision this year that has impacted me in the following way. And then I probably could have read on, but honestly, in 13 years, I have no idea what this essay is about. And 35 years of reading college essays, I've only read one essay that had cliches that I loved because it was a mockery about using cliches in a college essay, but only once. What do you think by saying a general topic essay? Why do we say avoid impersonal or general essay topics? Remember in the beginning, I said, if there's one thing I want you to remember, it should be 25% story, 75% about you. If you write a general essay topic, Alexandra highlighted a perfect example of one, making your resume into sentences. You know, it's really not what a resume in theory is telling us about your profile. We already have that in your activities and everywhere else. So it's not telling us anything more. I have one right here. I'm just going to summarize it to you because it's that boring. And the reason why it's boring to me as the reader is this person came to our university campus and visited it. And they wanted to show us that they were paying attention when they visited and sat in an information session. So their entire essay is a reiteration of what they heard in an info session. Well, I delivered the info session, so I already know this, right? I say it multiple times every single day. I would have rather have read an essay that maybe the story is how they visited campus, but a certain experience while they were on campus made them realize how it was a good match for them. And then they would have told me that 75% all about themselves, about how it worked. Okay. So that's another example of our don'ts. We touched upon it real quickly, inappropriate essay topics. One of them, and I hate to say it, is drug or alcohol. Some of them are obsessions with things. Some of them deal with, and I hate to say it again, sexual experiences. We are not a library. Bodily functions. We are not a diary. We're not a research book, right? We're trying to learn about you, so we don't need those details on inappropriate topics. A persuasive essay. Once again, 25% story, all about you, right? When you write a persuasive essay, you're trying to convert the reader, and one can come off very biased. And you have to be careful about that, because why are you going to university? It's to learn more. So we're looking for students who are open-minded. And when you write a persuasive essay, you're trying to tell us that your way is the only way and every other way is the wrong way. So avoid persuasive essays altogether. It's not a debate class when you're writing your college essays. You want doors to open for you so we can appeal to you. Controversial essays. What do you think? Please use the chat what you think controversial essays are. Religion, absolutely. What else? Politics. Oh, for sure, politics, especially now. Race, gender inequality, absolutely. These are all controversial topics. I love the fact that you guys are right on top of this. So writing a controversial essay topic can work, and it can be particularly engaging and memorable, but you have to ask yourself, and you must solicit advice from a teacher or an adult who can help you determine if your essay is appropriate. What I mean by that is you cannot be argumentative. You cannot show any type of biases. If there is a bias in your essay topic, you've already just closed a door rather than opening it. Make sense so far? So here's a little essay topic. I'm going to tell you the story. I'm not going to read the rest so you can see exactly what I mean by this. If I was ever asked which supervillain I was most like, I'd say Two-Face. Why? Because for 17 years, I've lived two very different lives. One was the life my parents wanted me to live, and the other is the life I've wanted to live. I feel like I've been molded into this masculine jock when in reality, I am more colorful than a tie-dye t-shirt. If you haven't figured it out, I'm gay. Yes, albeit I am the captain of the ice hockey team, I am the president of my class, and I am the star athlete on the soccer team. But I've been living a lie to myself. Now, sexual preference, gender can be a controversial topic. But if you read this gentleman's essay, at no point is he condemning straight people. He's really talking, the rest of this is all about himself and how living his life in this fashion early on before coming out has really directed his aspirations for his future. So here's a controversial topic that has been written exceptionally well and makes sense. Remember, you don't know your audience, so you need to be careful that you're not offending someone. I'm checking the chat to see. Right, you don't want something to be argumentative. Absolutely correct. Exactly, Asal. You have to develop these themes in your life stories as well. So the story and then the application, 75% is you. And I can't say this enough before we move on to Alexandra. Make your essays memorable. Sometimes the most mundane essay topics are the best. Remember that essay topic that I read you about hearing the honking horns, that engagement opening? It was about riding a bicycle. It just engaged me because it was written so exceptionally well. Or measuring the distance across the world in apple pies. It's because there were these horrible mudslides in the Philippines, and it was a community service essay, and it was how many apple pies this person had to bake and sell to raise enough money to rebuild a school and equip it. One of my favorite essays was this young woman who wrote a recipe, and the recipe was herself. So absolutely, it doesn't have to be an earth-shattering topic. It's how well you write it. And sometimes those mundanes are the best. Take it away, Alexandra.
Okay, so now I'm going to go into a little bit the two different structures of how to write an essay, depending on where you're coming from. And I know there were a lot of questions in the Q&A, and we'll definitely cover a lot of them. So for the narrative structure, now quickly tell me in the chat, do you guys know Harry Potter? I better be seeing a lot of yeses in the chat. Of course, right? Okay. So the narrative structure, I like to use the Harry Potter example. All right, so the status quo, essentially when you look at a narrative structure, it's a little bit like a hill, all right? The status quo is when Harry Potter was at home with his family and he wasn't a wizard or anything and he didn't really know what was going on. That was just the normal for him. And then an exciting incident happened. The status quo changed. He found out he was a wizard. So he was on this journey to figuring out his new life. And that's when he was kind of at the top. And then he raised the stakes because Voldemort came and he was like, I'm going to kill you. It was horrible. And then the moment of truth where he finds out that he has all of this power, that he represents so much, and that his parents, went through this horrible thing, but they left him such a legacy. So that really raised the stakes for him. And then the moment of truth is when he realizes his potential and his power. And it goes back to the new status quo. He is no longer that same person he was at the beginning. Now he's at the end. He's gone through this crazy journey. He's learned about himself. He went through a big challenge and obstacle. He realized his potential. So he will never go back to the same. So if you've had sort of kind of a life a little bit like that and you want to talk about that kind of a story, the narrative structure would be perfect. It's kind of like that up and down, and nothing will ever be the same again. And growing up is very much like that. So even if you haven't, found out, even if you didn't find out that you were a wizard with magical powers, maybe there's something else in your life that you can share with us in your essays. So that is the narrative structure example.
Sorry, I'm turning.
There we go. And then we have the montage structure. Now, I think a lot of you are familiar with this from movies. It's when it's all music and it's kind of like building blocks. It's you go from one little story to the next little story, and it's kind of like a timeline again. So this is also really good for students who, and I've seen this question in the chat, who maybe haven't gone through crazy obstacles or had crazy challenges in their life. They're kind of like, my life's pretty simple and boring. I grew up somewhere, had nice parents and family and friends, went to school, did some stuff, and now I'm ready for college. So the montage structure works pretty well for that. So it's just kind of talking about little blocks of your life up to the point where it's time to go to college. So this is just where you do want to talk about yourself and how you kind of learn through things. And I mean, everybody grows, everybody changes and has different opinions. So the montage structure can be very helpful for some of the students that have been asking me, what if nothing's happened in my life yet that I really can, like, what if I haven't had any horrible incidents? So that's where the montage structure comes in pretty well for you guys, okay? So that's pretty much the two different structures. Now I'm going to show you a very famous montage structure, and we're going to start looking at the chats and start answering some questions. Okay, as I know we have about we have a little bit over 10 minutes left, so I think we might want to actually tackle some of these questions, Karen, instead of showing the video. Is that okay?
Okay. I've answered some of them as people were talking as
Okay.
well. So
Yep. There was a couple in the Q&A. So one of them was saying how she really wants to study politics, but doesn't want to talk about any big political issues in the US or Kazakhstan in the essay, but she still wants to talk about how passionate she is for politics. Can she do that? If yes, how?
great question. I think we both can chime in. I think there are ways, like I said, that you could talk about politics. I had an essay from a young lady who was from Venezuela. And under the leadership of that country, they were confiscating land from families that were wealthy to spread out, right? And if families had more than one automobile, or their family were farmers looking at equipment, the government was taking this. At no point did this young lady condemn the government. She stated the facts that this is what was taking place in her country. But she also shared how her family's farm feeds the entire community. And because they feed the entire community, if their land was to be parceled and their equipment was to be taken, then the community that they lived in would no longer be fed because their financial resources would be cut, so only the family itself could survive. All she was doing is giving us facts. Her essay really had two purposes. It concluded with the story how when the government came to take equipment, that the community all came together, thousands of people, and built a human fence around their land and their equipment to prevent the government from taking it, so they didn't. And she shared in that context how that inspired her to see the value and influence of people in politics and listening to people and moving forward for wanting that as one of her majors. So there are ways, if you're giving facts and not opinion, at no point did she condemn the government, even though one could assume she was not in favor of it. She just provided facts. So sometimes through example, you can actually, I'm glad you asked this question. Through example, you can actually demonstrate the needs and the facts without condemning a person, a place, or a thing. Alexandra, is there anything that you want to add to that?
No, I think that was perfect. It's you talk about facts and kind of just like, I like that how you said that. It was just talking about facts versus condemning anything or bashing on anything. Yeah. Okay, so let's address some of the students who, you know, the US is definitely known for its extracurricular activities, being part of a group or sport, where internationally that's not always part of the educational culture. So a lot of students are asking and writing their essays. So I'm not really a part of any of these extracurricular activities, so I can't really talk about it in my essay. You know, in a parallel side, I haven't had any of these big obstacles or life experiences. How can I, is that okay? Like, how am I going to write my essay? What do you think, Karen? I mean, I mentioned the montage structure a little bit, but if you wanted to add something to that.
You know, I think the montage structure is the best approach. I think you're right. I know so many people are challenged because they don't have, or they don't think they have that passion or something, and they don't know exactly what they want to major in. Yet, like I said, there's got to be something you enjoy doing. Maybe it's taking photographs. Maybe it is cooking. Maybe it is meditation. Sometimes writing about the things that you enjoy, regardless if you don't know your major, as long as we can see what you are like, what your character is like, it's okay to be undecided, right, Alexandra? I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
and it's okay to experiment. I mean, at our university, you don't have to choose a major till 2 years in. And I know I'm elongating this answer because I'm looking ahead at some other questions that are in here, and I'm trying to combine them all together about, you know, I don't have an experience. I don't know what my major is going to be. I'm not sure if I have a passion. Maybe that's what you write about. You haven't discovered your passion yet.
Yep.
It's okay. You're not expected to know your passion at 16, but you could be passionate about not knowing your passion yet, and highlighting all the things that you're interested in. And hopefully through your university studies, you'll be able to develop that passion, right?
Yeah, you know, I think all of you are forgetting a major piece is that if you're coming to the US for college, that's a major journey. That's a major decision. I mean, the fact that you're considering this, the fact that you're about to, you know, go to the other side of the world and start this college experience, for those who haven't had like big obstacles or don't know what they want to study, this is a great thing to write about, how you're excited about doing this and what has brought you to this decision and what challenges and fears you're about to embark upon. I mean, those are big things that, you know, you should definitely not take for granted. You're going to bring such a perspective from your culture, from your country, your languages, the people you've met. There's not a lot of them over here, and we're going to love to hear about it.
So there's a couple of more questions in here. And while we talked about the things that you should do and the things that you shouldn't do, it doesn't mean that things are black and white. And what I mean by that is someone just wrote, you know, I'm not sure I have, and I want to see it verbatim because I just replied back. So sorry. They were like, what if I don't have that academic excellence? Can my essay make a difference? Absolutely. I used the example with the kid that built a computer. Then I have someone who writes, well, what if I have the academic excellence, but I don't have the necessary grades? Can my essay make a difference? I mean, what if I don't have a passion and I don't know what my major is, but I have the grades? Is that going to be okay? Absolutely. We're trying to get to know you better. And that's why that 75% is critical. I wasn't kidding when I said one of my all-time favorite essays was someone who decided that they were going to write a recipe, and the recipe was themselves. So the ingredients was themselves, and the recipe was themselves, and the end product was themselves. My all-time favorite essay. So you're writing about racial identity. Let me read this one. How I explain how as a kid I was raised by people who were escaping their identity and being discriminated towards certain groups of people, and how after my exchange year I accepted my cultural heritage and started working on educating people on their indemnities, including my family. Do you think this is a controversial topic? No, I think that's a fascinating topic. As long as you're not condemning, it's a fascinating topic. I would love to read that essay.
Yep. We're
Someone
getting
talks about moving. We get a lot of people that are third culture kids that write about their experiences in different cultures because they've moved so much, and that desire for building a home. Absolutely. All the colleges need essays. Yes, and some of them need multiple essays. Some colleges ask for 2 or even 3 essays. I'm not sure. I think community colleges, 2-year colleges, don't require an essay, but I think it's a rarity to come across a university that doesn't require some type of personal statement.
Well,
or answering a short question.
Yeah, well, at Nova Southeastern, for example, our essays are actually optional. We did get the question if an essay helps with scholarship. So I'll speak for NSU Florida. We do have a scholarship that requires not only an essay, but an interview. So in my case, for example, we do have something like that where the essay will help with a scholarship. What about Bentley?
At Bentley, our scholarships go up to full tuition and fees. So our highest scholarship for international students run around $60,000 a year. And so they're predominantly academic based. There's no additional application for our merit scholarships. However, if someone is borderline, then their essay along with their recommendation letters play a significant role.
Yep. Great.
Guys, I think we need
Can you use questions in an essay? Yes, you can use a question in an essay as a rhetorical statement.
Yep.
Do you think the 50 successful Harvard IB essays are really successful? Sardor, I think that's semantics. I think that's left to one's opinion. I'm not going to speak on behalf of Harvard or the Ivy Leagues. Although I did read for one of them quite a few years ago. I think I'll leave it at that. I don't know, Alexandra, if you want to add to that.
I mean, nope.
About the repetition question. Okay. It's not good to repeat things in your college essay. Hence, what we're trying to do is learn more about you. And that's why I made the comment of so many people write about their athletic sport and playing a game. I would rather see it, and their performance, I should say, in a game. I would rather see an essay about leadership or team playing and then use that sports experience as an example rather than that subject. That's what I mean. If you talk about leadership or being a team player, then it makes sense to use a sporting event or a club event as an example, but don't repeat what you do in that club if it's already listed in your activities.
All right, I think we're at our 9:20.
Yes, Karen and Alexandra, thank you a lot for the wonderful presentation. I think it was one of the most popular presentations we had. You got everyone here with so many different questions. Thank you a lot. Guys, I just want you to remind that session is pre-recorded. You can always watch it later. And also in the meantime, don't forget the fair is still on. You can go back and chat with universities. You can go and check the Bentley University. I saw someone is inspired now by Karen and wants to apply. So go ahead and talk to Karen in her booth. The same with Alexandra and other schools. Thank you a lot, guys. We are still going on. So let's rock the 40 minutes left of the fair. Bye, guys.
All right.
Thank you
sounds
so much. Thank you
Thank
so much.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.